Today, you're going to hear from Dr. Michael Ryce on the O Coalition, and he's going to share about the ancient Aramaic Jesus, Yeshua, and the unique teachings that lead to transformative changes in our lives. Stay tuned. We're coming right up. You're in for a really big treat today. I am with my good friend and mentor, one of the greatest master teachers that I've ever encountered, and his name's Dr. Michael Ryce. I know you're so humble, Michael, that you probably might soften that a bit, but it has been just a pleasure
Just put the word
to
student
get
in
to
the
know
place
you.
of teacher.
Student, I love it. You've been a great teacher for me and have led me to a lot of the healing that I went through back in 2011, 12, 13, 14. And it was really an incredible journey. And I wanted to really celebrate and share your wisdom and your gifts, with the world. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Delighted and honored. Look forward to seeing what unfolds, where we go here.
Awesome. So before we get into the deep background, I actually want to start kind of with an overview of what the embodiment of your life's work has been. So if you could give us a frame of reference, like, if we were to say, Michael, why is it that you're doing what you're doing and that you've done what you've done, and what is it that you've been teaching and sharing with the world?
The last 6 days I was in utero, my mother had toxemia, and they gave her Pitocin to try to force me out. The night of my birth, they called my father at work and said, if you want to see this kid alive, you better get down here because he's not going to survive the night. The next 25 years I spent on an inhalator and pills. I almost did 3 or 4 times as I was growing up. The first couple of weeks of school every year, I was in an oxygen tent in the hospital. I was not at school. And after a couple of decades of this, I realized that these pills they were giving me were keeping me alive, but they were killing me. And I needed to find healing. And that started to search. And that search has lasted, I'm not even sure now exactly, something in the range of about 57, 58 years now that I've been searching. I started out and in the moving in that direction, got a doctorate in holistic philosophy, and then went into naturopathic medicine. Actually went to law school for 3 semesters in that time period as well, and realized I wanted a different kind of law than what was the world was calling law. And then I found the first century Aramaic language and the teachings of Yeshua, and it was just like I came home. It was the most profound, the clearest understanding. Now, part of my work in my early education, I moved into the arena of electronics with a side study in physics. So when I found the Aramaic, and I'm listening to the words of this man, Yeshua, they call him Jesus. His name was not Hail Zeus, Jesus. That's a great way to take a rabbi and get him into the Greco-Roman world and make him acceptable, but that wasn't his name, it was Yeshua. What I heard in his speaking was, this isn't theology, this is physics. This is physiology. This is psychology. This is genetics. This is just how the world works and how we work within it. Mentioning law, I discovered, the world would teach us, and the world has a cheap copy of everything that is true. And the world's cheap copy of law is the rule of a superior. We have a superior, and if you don't obey, you're in big trouble with that superior. Total, complete fantasy. In Aramaic, the word law has nothing to do with the rule of a superior. There's nobody sitting up there waiting to come down on you because you broke the law. You can't break a law. Law in Aramaic simply means the way things work. If you bump into the law, you get broken. The law doesn't sustain any kind of fracture. And so beginning to understand that and build the brain cells for that was the start of the real advancement of my journey into healing. Otherwise, I was a naturopathic physician, practiced medicine in Atlanta, and that opened the space for moving away from and letting go of the drugs that I had been pressured into using all of my life previously. But moving into the Aramaic is where I found real, true healing technology based in truth. One of the things I've come to realize is that Unless you've got the truth, you can't ever accomplish anything real. And so that was the place where I found truth. And truth, there's some interesting Harvard research that says that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, we can hook somebody up to electrodes and measure 10,000 brain cells firing. In that time frame, what they determine is the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness in that time frame, which is about a 25th of a second, is 9 bits of data. The actual lab stats are 7 plus or minus 2, as little as 5, as much as 9 bits of data. So there are 10,000 brain cells firing. There are 9 bits of data available, 9 slots for information to show up. And it's been estimated in that same time frame that there are approximately 20 trillion bits of data in the actual world, not just what's going on around, but the actuality. And so
So we're not seeing very much.
well, actually, you've never seen anything in your life. That's all a fraud. You can't see things with your eyes. It's just not possible. I mean, when you get into the physics of it, it's silly. The eye is an antenna. It's a one-way valve. Information comes in. I can no more see out of my eyes than I can go grab the wire off my TV antenna and look in the wire and see the neighborhood. You can't do it. But information comes in, and according to what you have stored within your mind, brain cells fire, and the brain generates a construct called perception. That construct is painted on the inside of our eyeballs. The world has taught us that we're looking out through our eyes, but we're actually looking at constructs in our minds. That's why, if you've ever been in a courtroom where 6 different people testify about an accident, you wonder if any 2 of them were at the same accident. They were all the same. How is that possible? Because everybody's construct was different from everybody else's, and everybody thought they were looking at the accident. Nobody has seen anything in the world ever with their eyes. Now, there are instruments with we can go to the actuality and experience it, but it is not part of the human mind. It just isn't. It can't be done. So
Tell us more. Tell us more. What about that? Where is that?
where is? Ask me where is that?
Where you actually can
Oh,
see
well, I didn't say see. I
if
said
it's not
what I'm saying is experience.
experience.
It can
Okay.
be the actuality can be experienced directly, but the the trick in doing it is you got to be out of your mind. The ancient teachings talk about the mind of man, and man being the red clay, Adamos. And the red clay is made of carbon. Interesting, if you break down a carbon atom, you have 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 666. The storage place of repeated experience, the replicate mind, that plays out the same things over and over and over again. And of course, as a result of understanding that, I have a book I wrote called Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Now, people who live in denial and don't want to own that they have anything to do with it, they call looking for my book and they say, I understand you got a book. Why are they doing this to me again? Or some people have been taught by their power person to blame themselves. They call and they say, hey, I understand you've got this book. Why am I doing this to myself again? But the book lays out the dynamics, basically what we've spoken about so far on a personal level with the character. And I walk this character through how to be out of his mind, how to get free of the mind. And
It's an
there is a
excellent book.
technology called forgiveness. And in the ancient Aramaic language, the word forgive is the technology with which you collapse errant constructs of your mind, go to the root of those constructs, and remove the errant content. That's called forgiveness. Now, I'm actually working on a new book where Yeshua is saying, everything they told you about me, including my name, it's all Greek to me, because the Greeks took it over and they turned it into what it never was. And virtually every key and important word that Yeshua spoke, the Greeks misinterpreted. They call it translation. There are now, Western scholarship will say we Greek translations and they were written in Greek. No, 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 no. There is no such thing as a Greek translation of Yeshua's words. It doesn't exist. There are interpretations. There's a little con job that goes on. You say, oh, lost in translation. Oh, you can't translate that. No, nothing's been lost in translation. It's been lost in misinterpretation. The words have not been translated. Translation means I have an idea in my mind. You are a translator, and you can take that idea that's in my mind, formulate a word in another language that if you speak that word, another mind will have exactly the same image as my mind has. That's translation. Virtually every key word that Yeshua taught has been turned backward. So forgiveness now becomes, I'm in all this pain, but it's all your fault, and I'll be good about it because I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to let you off the hook for the pain that's moving inside of me. Well, if I let you
That's how I was taught it.
if I let you off the hook for the pain that's happening inside of me, have I done anything to change the pain that's happening inside of me? Absolutely nothing. So if I never learn
Yeah.
to change the pain that's happening inside me, I get to live the title of my book. Why am I doing this to myself again? Because the replicate mind, carbon-based memory, what in the scriptures was called the mind of man, knows nothing but to repeat what's in it. And when we hide things in that mind, we engage in an unconscious process of creating our lives out of those dynamics. And relative, if we bring Einstein into the equation, Einstein says this: on such things as matter, we have been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy, energy whose vibrations have been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. There is no material world. The eye, when energy comes in, makes up pictures that look solid, but there's nothing solid out there. It's energy. And when you realize that your physiology is made of energy, then relative to the integrated state of your physiology, there are two qualities of energy: what builds the system up, what tears the system down. If you put a tear down energy into your system, then you're going to have a disease happen. Now, somebody will come along and give you a pill to try to shut down the energy that's creating that disease. But until you remove the energy that's creating that disease, the disease is going to persist. And forgiveness is the way that you go inside the system and you remove what never belonged. Now, one of the challenges with that is virtually every one of us from day one, and by about the age of 4, we are very devout, card-carrying members of the one world universal religion of blame. Take a look at the whole world. What's everybody talking about? You made me so, you hurt, you do, look what she, look at he, look what they did to me. But what people fail to realize is whatever the this is, they've been through it 87 different times with 42 different people and never realized that they're the one that was there every time. And their own replicate mind, what was called the mind of man, is producing the result, the disease processes, the relationship dynamics that are failing, whatever the game is that people are playing. And so what Yeshua developed 2,000 years ago was a technology with which to collapse the constructs of the mind on a consistent and persistent basis. And what happens when you collapse the construct of the mind is it drops in on its own footprint. Now you've got access to what you've been hiding from yourself. The cycle for most people is they start out in denial. What is denial? Whenever I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, I've given my mind an instruction to lie. Mind, don't show me this is mine. Hallucinate a construct that shows me this is somebody else's fault. So now I have to hide the truth from myself. And in hiding the truth from myself, I create an unnatural condition for a human being. I create an unconscious mind. And you'll notice that concomitant with doing that, I hold my breath. And whenever I hold my breath, I shut down the movement of energy in me. I shut down the movement of intelligence and aliveness, and I hide from myself what it is that I never wanted to deal with, just like my parents and their parents and their parents before them. When they said the sins of the father will be passed yea into 3 and 4 generations, that wasn't a threat from the Creator. That was just information. Here's how it works, folks. If you put energy into the system and nobody deals with it, it goes on generation after generation after generation. Until you come back into relationship with the solution, you're going to be stuck with whatever that disease process is, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, relational, financial, whatever it is. But Yeshua had a specific technology for how to collapse the false constructs of the mind, drop into the underlying dynamic, making what was unconscious conscious, and changing. Carl Jung, one of my favorite quotes in the world comes from Carl Jung. And he says, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate. And Yeshua has the only technology in the world for consistently, persistently making the unconscious conscious. And once the unconscious becomes conscious and you accompany the experience of that with breath, then whatever it is that's locked in that is of a disease nature begins to be transformed.
So let's build on that. And I want to go. So share, if you would. I'm a walking, talking example. People know my story if they've been on this channel at all, so they know that I've went through a significant healing process, and I attribute the healing process to this work. The Beatitudes, the ancient teachings of Yeshua. It's just it absolutely works. But go back to your story a little bit. You said that you, for years, you were on these medications. You became a naturopath. You found now these tools of Yeshua. Were they instantly useful for you to navigate and experience a change, or what was that journey like for you?
Well, they were instantly useful in moving in the direction of healing and wholeness. But I'll say that in whatever it is, 57, 58 years of doing this work, it's the last 3 years that I've done the deepest, most important work in my life in terms of my own internal process. And that was when I discovered the misinterpretation that the Greeks put into Yeshua's mouth about the breath. That's when the deepest transformation started to happen and the most important insights have come. And that's in the last 3 years or so, 2.5 to 3 years.
And can you share more about that?
Sure. If you go back into the Aramaic language, when Yeshua spoke about what the key was to healing, he always went back to the Aramaic words ruka de kucha. And ruka de kucha in Aramaic speaks of a feminine elemental force in us that undoes the effect of our errors and teaches us and shows us revelation, shows us what's really going on. Our word for that, ruka de kucha, is breath. But our definition of breath is, well, you bring air into the lungs, you get oxygen. If you don't breathe, you die. That's kind of like, but that's about 10% of what breath means as you go to the ancient Aramaic. So when the Aramaic teachings were taken over by the Greeks, you won't find the word ruka de kucha in their translations. What you'll find is the word pneuma. So the Creator put the solution to life in our nostrils with our first breath. It's ours, free gift, you got it for life, if you can keep it. If you deny it, then you're in trouble. And deny it means hold the breath. So the Greeks, instead of bringing forward that core piece of the puzzle, changed the word to pneuma. Pneuma meaning like as in pneumonia, as in lungs, as in air flowing in and out of the body. Like, oh yeah, breath. And then the Latins came along and they translated pneuma as spiritus. Now we have some sort of a ghosty thing that in Aramaic does not exist. There is no such word. There is no such concept. But now we got this ghosty thing that is going to give you all kinds of gifts and take care of your life and heal you. And the breath is gone. It's been taken out of our nostrils, redefined so that people do not understand where the key is. And the key is in the breath. That's where the healing power is. If you go back to, and I was actually doing some research for Jeannie's new book on healing generations, one breath at a time, to do an introduction for her book. And I went back to some of those ancient sources I could find in the Aramaic and the Aramaic creation story. And in Aramaic, those earliest stories don't say God breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life and man became a living soul. What it says is God, the Creator, breathed ruka de kucha, the breath of life, and man became a thinking, speaking being, a piece of clay with no intelligence, no capacity, no nothing, just a piece of clay, dust. That's it. All of a sudden is animated with intelligence and healing power. And without breath, it isn't animated. It's gone. And so, even though I discovered, I've worked with breath for, 45, 46 years ago, I discovered the still point breathing process. And that's a core part of everything I've taught for decades. And that if I'm up against the wall on something in terms of my own process, I'll step into doing breath work. Up until about 3 years ago, I never had a practice of doing breath work. If something was up for me, I'd breathe, but it wasn't a core part of my world or of my life. When I say the last 2 or 3 years, the most important work that I've done has been in that time period. That was when I started a breath practice. We our last season at our teaching center, Heartland in the Ozarks in southern Missouri, was in the 2019, and COVID struck, and we were closed down. And in the last couple of years, it's just been more work than I wanted to do to go out and reopen it. We've got 15 buildings, and it was just too much work. So I had people wanting to do personal work, and I created a process, a personal one-on-one 3 to 5 day intensive called Quantum Still Point. And in Quantum Still Point, I bring forward kind of everything that's I've worked with from my naturopathic practice all the way to the latest understandings and translation work. And it's a physiological process that's pretty intense. And back about, I'm not even sure exactly the time frame, 2.5, 3 years ago, wishing I had someone to do the process on me, and that's not something you can really do on yourself, I went ahead and did the best I could do to do the process on myself, to engage and do that level of work. So it was not complete, but relatively successful. And from that day forward, I spend an hour to 3 hours a day with breath. I integrate that into my life, and that's where my deepest work is coming from. And when we go to the breath is where intelligence lies. There's an interesting word that comes out of Hawaii, and the word is haole. You familiar with that word? So in Hawaii, they call the white man a haole. And in Hawaii, when people meet, I think that the Hawaiians are probably one of the lost tribes of Israel. And when the Hawaiians greeted each other, Rachma is one of the key words in Aramaic. It's a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain that is a gateway to bring love into the human form. And the Hawaiians have a word aloha, which is almost identical to Rachma. And when the Hawaiians met, what they did is they joined literally. If we were, to be coming together physically, we would join forehead to forehead, and we would breathe each other's nasal air, not the mouth air. According to the Hawaiians, words toxify that. You don't do that. But they breathed each other's air. The white man showed up, and he stuck out his hand as though to check for weapons, which is the origin of shaking hands. And the word haole means greets without breath. When you put that original Aramaic creation story together, you recognize that breath is intelligence, breath is capacity, breath is healing power. Anything we do without breath, we do without intelligence. So when the Hawaiians called the white man haole, they greets without breath. He doesn't have a connection. And whenever we look at a situation, you notice virtually everybody, when they're upset and disturbance, what do? They hold their breath. Guess what?
Or go shallow.
Or go shallow, right. Guess what the words are in the Greek misinterpretations of the scriptures that represent that. The denial of the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. Remember, the Latins introduced spiritus. But actually, you bring blasphemy into it. You look at that passage, and Yeshua says, you can deny me, you can blaspheme me, but don't blaspheme, don't deny, don't hold your breath. Because when you hold your breath, whatever you're doing without intelligence. The only intelligence available to someone whose breath is locked down and their physiology is distorted as a result of years and years and generations of doing that, the only intelligence they've got is whatever's in carbon-based memory. And they're trying to figure it out with whatever is going on out of their database from the past. And there's no life in the past. There is no future in the past. All there is a replicant mind that plays out, quote unquote, the sins of the father.
And so as we clean up that process by bringing those things from the hidden, the unconscious mind up into the conscious with the breath, what's happening?
Well, as you bring that word hidden in, you'll remember in the scriptures, once again, they say, nothing will remain hidden. Everything will be made known in the light of day. If you spend your life in denial, blaming, 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 denial, look what they did to me, you're hiding from yourself. Whatever's hidden is going to be made known. It's either going to show up in your physiology as disease, in your emotions as disease, in finances as your disease, or in relationships as disease. And so and you'll notice whenever people are in some sort of pain or trauma or resistance to what's happening in their lives, they're locking down their breath. What happens when one locks down one's breath? One creates an artificial barrier. In the ancient teachings, it was called the veil of the temple. And you remember they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain. They weren't talking about a purple curtain in a church. The veil of the temple is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. We are not designed to have an unconscious mind. Now, if you talk to psychologists today, they'll tell you that 80, 85, 90, maybe as much as 95, 96% of our so-called thinking is unconscious. We're a long way from where we're designed to be.
So if we were functioning optimally as we were designed to be, does that flip? What happens with the thinking mind, the thinking, and how does one can you express your experience of the contrast
We're not,
of when it's one way versus
we're
another?
not designed to hide things from ourselves that show up and bite us in the butt. We're not designed for that. We're not designed to have an unconscious mind. It's an artificial creation, and whatever we hide under the veil of the temple is going to have an impact of showing up again in physiology or something that comes. And we go, where did that come from? Why are they doing it? What's happening here? And so
The blame thing.
the veil, the barrier, is built by holding the breath. The Greeks, again, total complete misinterpretation. The denial of the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. Like the Creator's got this thing that, boy, if you do it, you're finished for eternity. It's unforgivable. And that's just such foolishness. The Creator has nothing that even resembles that. But if we go to the Aramaic of that, what we would hear is the holding of the breath, the denial of the breath, that which undoes the effects of our errors and reveals the truth to us, then we are stuck in unforgiveness. Because that energy that we're holding, perhaps from 10 generations ago, only needs to be touched by breath to be transformed, to be transmuted, to be removed. Lock the breath out of that part of our structure, and now we're stuck in unforgiveness because the vehicle that does the actual forgiveness work. And, again, the Greeks have got the cheap copy, forgiveness. I'm going to let you off the hook for nothing whatsoever. Forgiveness is how I go inside myself, access what I'm holding that never belonged there, whatever's under the veil of my temple, and I remove it.
So I want to emphasize this. And if this is your first time hearing this and you're listening to Dr. Ryce here, I encourage you to go watch that again, because there's so much, the richness of the words doesn't even come close to the incredible experience of practicing, right? Because the intellectual part, it's like, okay, you can get it intellectually, but without practicing, there's no benefit, there's no payoff.
Exactly. Well, that's why I said it's the last 2 or 3 years for me that I've done the deepest work. I mean, I did all this head work for decades, which was a benefit. However, nothing compared to stepping in and doing the actual work.
It's the number one thing that we as a planet need, not just individually, but we do this individually. It opens up for the generations and the things that have been perpetuated through life cycle after life cycle start to change. And if we do that enough, the outer reflection in the world is going to have to reflect that, yes. Right?
Exactly. And, Yeshua, being a physicist, said a little leavening leavens the whole loaf. He wasn't talking about bread. He was saying when enough people show up as breathing individuals, we are breath-based beings. If we hold that, if we stop that, then we function without intelligence, without life. You remember his singular, a lot of people, he came to bring us this dogma and this doctrine. Not what he said. One simple phrase, I come to bring you life. You've given up your life. Look at, you're holding your breath. Look at how much time you spend holding your breath. There's no life in that. And so,
can you share a couple examples, Michael, of people I mean, you've been doing this for decades and decades, right? So you have, I'm sure, hundreds or thousands of stories. I think at one point you said there's more than 10,000 people who've gone through just the assessment process that you have, that you and Dr. Dan McDougall created. And I'm curious, as you look over the spectrum, are there some themes, maybe not in, that jump out that, hey, I've seen these kinds of changes in people that make this a deliberate
Well, there's
practice?
this gentleman I know named Mark Hattas. He's got a really powerful story that,
I am the walking poster boy of
yeah.
denial and going through the deepest of work to transform.
Well,
It's
it's the state
incredible.
of the
Thank you.
culture. But go back to that statement that says the sins of the fathers will be passed yea into 3 and 4 generations. And then there's a statement that follows that most people never hear. And it's the creator speaking to humans. And the piece that's missing is, yea, of those who hate me. There's the creator saying to humans, whatever your generations have done that remains unresolved is going to run your life unless you connect with me. How do you connect with me? My breath is the intelligence and the resolution in your physiology. Otherwise, you got a piece of dust that whatever the Father's put in the piece of dust is what you're going to live out. And you're going to think that's life. And oh, well, that's the way it goes. And if your fathers lived in, they did it to me, then you're going to live in, they did it to me. And to turn that around is a major piece of work. And the turnaround happens in the breath. It takes willingness, it takes understanding and applying forgiveness. Again, forgiveness is the technology for collapsing false constructs, constructs based in hostility or fear, collapsing them, accessing what's been hidden, and bringing it forward in the presence of the intelligence of the breath. In the presence of the intelligence of the breath, there is a transformation of whatever it is we're carrying. So when we are, and that word, yea, of those who hate me is not hate as in a love-hate relationship. It's saying those who are separated from me, because I am a breath-based being. You are a breath-based being. When you hold your breath, you're separated from me. And now the only advice, I'm here to be full advice for you. All you have to do is engage me, breathe. If you hold your breath, then what you're stuck with is whatever's stored in your carbon-based memory system, whatever the generations have done. You're going to look at it and go, yeah, well, that's what my father did, and that's my father's father, and my father. That's what I'm going to do. That must be the solution. It's not the solution. I mean, literally. I mean, it's so simple, and the rip-off that happened, Ruka, the elemental force in us that undoes the effects or errors and literally reveals truth to us, is available with just a breath. But it became pneuma, wind, and it became spiritus.
And I want to emphasize two things. One would be, you mentioned how in the last few years, now your practice has moved to 1 to 3 hours, if I
Per day,
heard that right,
yes.
a day.
First thing in the morning, that's
And
where I spend my time, is in breath work.
and is it a certain type of breath
It
work?
is the still point breathing process that we teach in our intensives. Yeah.
Okay. And if someone wanted to learn that, could they come to a class? How would they meet
Yes.
you and learn?
Well, both my wife and I do one-on-one personal work over Zoom. And so that's one way to access it. We do a monthly Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing Club. Mind Shifters is another tool that we teach. So that's done over Zoom. We do intensive workshops on occasion. We're actually looking at, probably sometime within the next 2 months or so, we'll be starting a Laws of Living online intensive. And we've had a request, and we're looking at, and it'll probably be in the early fall, we're looking at doing probably a 16-day residential intensive here in Virginia, where we're going to be setting up and focusing on. Over the years, I've developed a system of hands-on energy field work, of aligning. When you go back to Yeshua, he's been put in this place of being kind of a miracle worker. He just fixes things because he's got a power that you don't have. But actually, they don't call him the great physician for nothing. He was a physician. He knew what he was doing. Energy work. He knew exactly what he was doing. And so we're going to put together a 16-day program that's going to move towards certification in hands-on energy field work and still point breathing. That'll,
Oh,
that'll
sign
probably
me
be in the
up.
fall. So,
Definitely
okay,
come to
well,
that.
we'll definitely put you on the list for that.
That's one, and I won't go too deep into it, but it's just I'm fascinated with that. I've had some experiential things happen where it's like, I don't know what to do with
Right.
this. So to have that directed, that would be a great class. The breath work online. Where would people find access to these classes and the
Yeah.
monthly and all that?
So our website is www.whyagain.org. Whyagain.org. My book's available online free there. The book I published back in 1996 and it's out of print. So I can't sell you a copy, but you can download a free copy at whyagain, whyagain.org/book. It's in, I think, 10 different languages now. There are still copies.
And that's the Why Is This
Why is this
Happening to Me Again
Yeah.
book.
There are still copies floating around. There are always copies available on eBay for $5. It's kind of embarrassing, $5, or on Amazon. There are always used copies available, so it's still available in print, but they can download it free from the website. We do if people engage in the work and they need support, we do a radio show 5 days a week from 1 till 2 o'clock Eastern time. There's a link again on our website. It's called Mindshifters Radio, and on our YouTube channel, we've got, I was looking actually yesterday, and we're getting close to 3,000 hours of videos. So people can just go on YouTube, type in Michael, Michael, and you'll be on our YouTube channel. There are, I think, 2,800 videos right now. And our radio show, if you go to whyagain.org, there's a link there. You'll open the opening page, has a microphone on it. You'll see the microphone. You click on that. There's a link, and we do it on Zoom every day, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. And so people, just as long as they've got Zoom on their phone or on their computers, all they do is store that link under our name, hit the link, and they're listening to the show. Talk to us, ask questions. We have the world's only forgiveness app. And so if you go to your app store, whatever type of phone you've got, and type in Heartland, Heartland, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness, by the time you get about halfway through typing that, you'll see a red heart, an app with a red heart come up. You download that, it's free. It's a totally private app. One of the things, I mean, when people start to get into doing this type of work, it's pretty intimate. And so we purposely designed the app so there are absolutely no permissions required. So it's totally, completely private, except for, of course, the app's got to use the internet. So that's the only permission that the app has. And then once you do the worksheet process, you can save it as a PDF. And if you choose to do that, then it will ask for permission to save it somewhere. And otherwise, there are no permissions. It's a totally private app. And from within the app, there are actually 2 different versions of the forgiveness process and a kids game to introduce the work to children. It's called the Drag On Cling On game. You know, how people drag things on in their lives and how things cling to them or they cling to things. And so it's a way to introduce kids to the forgiveness process.
What's the youngest that someone could be introduced to this and have it be effective?
We've had kids at 4 do an intensive and successfully doing the forgiveness work. Our granddaughter,
So any age.
Let's see, she was in kindergarten, and we had been teaching her about the core of forgiveness, and the core of it in the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag or shabak, and the word actually means cancel. And so we've trained our grandkids that they cancel goals. And you'll notice, most people, unless you're somebody just, really truly miserable, most people are pretty happy with most everybody in their lives as long as everybody's fulfilling all the goals they have for them, right? Notice the only time people go into hostility or fear is when people aren't fulfilling a goal I hold for you. Well, this is the core of forgiveness. Canceling that goal is the key to collapsing the false constructs of the mind and accessing the hidden parts of the mind. Anyway, so Aria is, I guess, going on 5. She's in kindergarten, and she comes home one day and she says, she's talking to Jeannie. She calls my wife Nini. She says, Nini, I've been trying to teach these kids at school to cancel their goals, but they won't do it. So I just cancel them for them. So they,
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. This is your granddaughter.
We literally had kids at 4 successfully sitting down. I mean, with someone's help. We actually had a gal from up in Lansing area who was there with her daughter and her brother who was 4, and the 11-year-old daughter was helping the 4-year-old to do forgiveness work, the worksheet, writing it for him, but the 4-year-old following the process.
Well, there's so many young people struggling, and especially there's so much chaos in the world and chaos in homes, and there's so much there to arm our young people with these tools. What a gift. What's your vision for this? How would you say, is there a finish line? Like, what's success for your work here?
Our commitment is every mind, heart, and being on the planet to make it available. So that's what we're working toward. And back when I first wrote "Why Is This Happening to Me Again," Jim Redfield was a friend of mine, student of mine, and
The Celestine Prophecy.
He had the second best-selling book in the world in 1995, and the Aramaic comes from this work. And Jim had given my book to his editor at Warner Books, and Warner, the editor's like, "Your time has come, Michael. We want this book. We want to publish it." And I was guided to say no to that. I mean, that was exciting. Jim was rolling in dough and known globally all over the place. And in meditation, I was shown a visual. You see the visual of the planet, the blue dot in space. And what I was shown was, Michael, if you go with Warner Books, yes, it will be successful. But I was shown the blue planet, and it showed me a spike. It said there'll be a spike, grow up from it, and that spike will be knocked over and it'll be done. It said, keep your mouth shut, keep doing what you're doing. And then I was shown a second shot of the planet, and there was just a circle around the whole planet, and the whole circle grew, boom, at one time to the height of the spike, and it was decentralized, nobody could touch it. So that was 1994 or 5. So who could have imagined that now in 2026, we can take this whole body of work, which we're doing, we can put it on a non-local server that will be located in dozens of different places on the planet. It is absolutely uneditable. Nobody can interfere with it or stop it. It will be globally available, and going through AI, it will be basically translated into virtually every language on the planet. Now, how could anybody have imagined that in 1996? But that's what we've got, and that's what we're in the process of doing, is uploading all of our data and getting ready to go on non-local servers. So it's this new technology, they guarantee that your material will be available online for a minimum of 700 years.
Wow. Are you referring to like blockchain technology or something else?
I'm not all that familiar with what the technology is. We're working with taking,
but whoever
we've got thousands of hours of archives, and we're putting everything into AI, synthesizing it, and getting ready to just take the whole thing. Once we get the final data together in English, then AI will just take it and go boom.
It's fabulous. So there's two things I want to close with. One, just immense gratitude. Thank you. I mean, this is a great orientation to the core of your work, but there's so much more. And this is, again, it's not an intellectual work; it's a practice work. This is something you really. And there's not a finish line. It's something that integrates where it becomes part of your life. I want to emphasize to anyone listening. It's like, hey, this will change your life. This will move you from the ups and downs and the highs and the lows. It doesn't mean life doesn't happen, but it means that you get to stay centered, authentically whole as you while life happens. And through that, there's just such a brilliance of life that comes from it. So I want to emphasize that to anyone listening.
Well, that's kind of we're getting close to closing, Todd, here, and I'm dropping into my book. And,
good.
One of the opening pages, life without tools is sleep and hell. Information without tools is impotence. Power without tools is dictatorship. Relationship without tools is codependence. Knowledge without tools is dangerous. Commitment without tools is hopeless. Abundance without tools is loss. Health without tools is impossible. Learning without tools is chaos. Ambition without tools is corruption. A world without tools is war. Having tools and not using them is a world without tools. And then life with tools is awakening and delight. Information with tools is power. Power with tools is service. Relationship with tools is interdependence. Knowledge with tools is safety. Commitment with tools is a blessing. Abundance with tools is easy. Health with tools is natural. Learning with tools is education. Ambition with tools is accomplishment. A world with tools is peaceful. Having tools and using them leads to aliveness. And that's the whole objective of this work, is to restore people to aliveness, going back to the simple, single line stated purpose of this man, Yeshua. I come to bring you life.
And those tools that are referenced in that book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? It's referenced at the whyagain.org website, referenced in your thousands of hours of video and education. There's a lot there on these tools, so I encourage everybody to find them. Last question, Michael. Is there anything today that I didn't ask that you were hoping I would, or something that you wanted to circle back and touch on or emphasize that you think is really critical to this work?
Well, you've been to an intensive, and at Heartland, I do we haven't opened since 2019, but we used to do a 65-day intensive every year. And in that 65-day intensive, for 65 days straight, except for a few days off here and there, I'll be in front of the classroom doing anywhere from 6 to 10 hours a day of presentation. So we could do this for months and not scratch the surface of it. So not really. I think we've covered it pretty well, at least an introduction. I don't know whether, I think I sent you a set of links to Jeannie's book where she read them on the radio show. And that might be a good follow-up, is because Jeannie takes it. Jeannie has in her book, Healing Generations One Breath at a Time, the only record that I know of written of the actual work of Yeshua being done in real, gritty, traumatic life circumstances.
Absolutely.
An actual record of how to use the tools.
And in the meantime, before I bring Jeannie on and we talk, they can find her book also at Why Again, or
you can find it at Why Again. Basically anywhere. It's on YouTube, or pardon me, it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, it's on Walmart, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. The digital book is there, and Amazon actually I think they're coming online with the physical book next week. I actually found the book I was kind of surprised. I found it on Walmart about 2 weeks ago, and ordered it just to see what they sent, because Walmart doesn't get it from us, and they have a print-on-demand system. And literally, I ordered it from Walmart, and 2 days later, had the print-on-demand book in my hands. It wasn't quite the same quality as the one we've got, but if people have questions of Jeannie, they can write to her, and they can order the book directly from her, Jeannie, JEANIE at whyagain.org. They can drop her a note.
Absolutely. And it's an incredible, give just a quick framing of, you mentioned the trauma and the application of Yeshua's work. And she has specifically a background that is just ripe for women to step into and heal.
When Jeannie was 16, her home life was so traumatic that she went and got married, and married a man who was, and spent 3 years with him, because once you're married, you have to stay that way, who was an extreme physical, mental, emotional, and sexual abuser, financial abuser. And she, until she met me 30 some years later, she never told anybody. She was in school while this was happening. None of her friends knew. She actually did a book signing for a group of a reunion of her school friends, and none of them knew this had happened, although they knew her and the guy she had married. And her parents, she'd never said anything to anybody until she met me, and then started to do this work and got down to the nitty-gritty of facing those kinds of things, and goes into specifics of how to use the tools to work through it. So as we say, it's the only written record of, the gritty work of Yeshua coming home to how do you actually do it. The book Why Is This Happening to Me Again is a conversation with a man who's got challenge in his life, and we kind of work through it. We demonstrate the tools and we walk through it, but it doesn't get down to that, gut level nitty-gritty stuff.
Yeah, it's raw. It's raw.
Yeah, it's courageous, it's powerful, and yeah. So.
Well, thank you, and please send our love and thanks to Jeannie as well. I'll get in touch with you on that. I really appreciate you being here, Michael. And if you like this content, obviously, subscribe, like the episode, share it with friends, and check out in the description some of the links that Michael mentioned. They'll be down in the description. You can click through and find his work. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you being here.
We can do this anytime. All right. Blessings. Okay. Enjoy
Awesome.
it. Blessings. Bye-bye.